All right, so it looks like we're going to be diving deep into gold IRAs today. We've got articles, research papers, even some of your own notes here. Looks like you're really trying to figure out this whole gold IRA thing for retirement planning.
Yeah, and especially after the last few years, a lot of people are looking for ways to protect their money, like, from just everything.
Right, like maybe stocks and bonds aren't enough anymore.
It's like everyone's remembering that,
Yeah.
diversification is important.
Okay, but how does gold fit into all of this? Isn't it a little bit, I don't know, old-fashioned?
Well, i- i- it might seem that way, but it's interesting. If you think back to the 1970s when inflation was really high, gold actually did really well, while stocks and bonds, uh, they struggled.
Oh, wow. So there's actually like real historical data to back this up.
Yeah, and that's why gold is getting so much attention now, because it's seen as a way to protect your money from inflation.
So it's not just about like, you know, getting rich quick.
Right.
It's more about
Right,
like
car.
protecting what you already have.
Exactly. It's about preserving your purchasing power over the long term.
Okay, so how does that actually work? Like, is there some kind of like magical force field around your money or something?
Let me give you a real-world example. Imagine you have a basket of apples, and those apples represent your savings. Inflation is like this little gremlin that comes along and starts taking bites out of your apples, so your apples are worth less. Gold is like this special apple that the gremlin doesn't like, so its value stays the same.
Oh, I like that analogy.
So it's not that gold's value is magically increasing, it's that it holds its value better than other things when times are tough.
I see. Okay, so we've talked about diversification and inflation, but how do you actually invest in gold for retirement? Is that where these gold IRAs come in?
Exactly.
So it's not just some like stock or ETF that's tied to gold. You're talking about actual physical gold.
Yeah, like gold bars and coins.
Wow. Okay, so how does this whole gold IRA thing work?
Well, it's actually very similar to a traditional IRA. You get the same tax advantages. Your investments grow tax deferred, so you only pay taxes when you withdraw the money in retirement.
So it's like getting a tax break while also potentially protecting your savings from inflation.
Right.
That sounds pretty good.
And with a gold IRA, you get to choose the specific type of gold you want.
Oh, so it's not just like some generic gold fund.
You can choose from gold bars or coins or even specific mints.
So you have a lot of control over your investment.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to see why these gold IRAs are getting so much attention. But is this something that's right for everyone?
No, that's a good question. And there's no one-size-fits-all answer. To figure that out, I think we need to look at some real-life examples.
Yeah, I love hearing about how this stuff actually works for people.
Right.
But before we do that, there's one question that keeps popping up for me. Is gold really always a good investment? I've heard that saying so many times, but I don't know. It always makes me a little skeptical.
It's good to be skeptical. And honestly, that's a myth that needs to be busted.
Hmm?
While gold has historically held its value over time, it's not immune to fluctuations.
Right. It's not like some magical set it and forget it solution.
Exactly.
So you still need to be aware of market trends and potential risks.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's not a guarantee. It's
Right.
more about like a long-term strategy.
Right.
Okay, well, before we dive into those real-life stories, I think it's important to acknowledge that not all gold IRA companies are created equal.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
How do you even begin to navigate that landscape?
It's like choosing any other financial product or service. You need to do your research. You want to make sure you're working with a reputable company.
Okay, so what are some key things to look for when choosing a gold IRA provider?
Well, first you want to look for a company with a solid track record. Look for positive reviews from other investors and make sure their fees are transparent.
Makes sense. Speaking of fees, what kind of costs should someone be prepared for with a gold IRA?
You'll typically encounter setup fees, annual maintenance fees, and storage fees for the physical gold.
Okay.
It's important to compare these costs across different providers. Don't be afraid to ask questions and make sure you understand the fee structure before you commit.
That's good advice. Now, where is this gold actually kept? It's not like I'm going to have bars of gold stashed under my mattress.
Definitely not.
Oh, where does it go?
Reputable gold IRA providers will partner with secure depositories. These are specialized facilities that are designed to store precious metals safely.
Oh, so like a high security vault.
Pretty much.
So it's really safe.
Yes. These depositories meet strict security and insurance standards.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
Yeah.
So once I've chosen a provider and my gold is safely tucked away, what happens next? Do I just sit back and watch it sparkle?
Well, it's not quite a set it and forget it type of investment. You still need to monitor its performance and make adjustments as needed.
So even with a gold IRA, I should still be keeping an eye on market trends and economic news.
Exactly.
I see.
Informed decision-making is key, regardless of the investment.
Okay.
Stay up to date on factors that could influence gold prices, such as inflation rates, interest rates, and global demand.
Got it.
It's about being an active participant in your financial future.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. Gold IRAs can be a valuable tool, but they require careful consideration, research, and ongoing management.
Right, just like any other investment.
Okay, so it's all about creating that well-balanced portfolio. Now, remember those real-life stories we mentioned earlier? The ones about people who actually incorporated gold IRAs into their retirement plans? Let's hear about those next and see what lessons we can learn.
Absolutely, those stories can provide valuable insights. They can help us understand how gold IRAs play out in real-world scenarios.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, so let's get into those real-life examples. I think we had a couple who are really worried about market volatility.
Yeah, Mark and Linda, they had most of their retirement savings in stocks and bonds. But after seeing, how much the markets can go up and down, especially recently, they started to get a little nervous.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. It seems like every time you turn on the news, there's something new to worry about. So what did they do?
They decided to put some of their money into gold through a gold IRA.
Oh, okay.
They saw it as a way to add some stability to their portfolio and potentially offset any losses if the stock market went down.
So they weren't necessarily trying to get rich off of gold. It was more about protecting what they already had.
Exactly.
Okay. And what about that other case? The one with someone who was worried about inflation.
Oh, yeah, Susan. She was retired and living on a fixed income, and she was really starting to feel the effects of inflation. Her expenses were going up, but her income wasn't.
That's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah, especially during retirement when you're not earning a regular paycheck anymore.
Right. So did she end up investing in a gold IRA too?
Oh, she did. After doing some research, she felt like a gold IRA could give her the stability and protection from inflation that she was looking for.
So it was less about market volatility for her
Right.
and more about just preserving her purchasing power over the long term.
Exactly.
It's interesting how gold can play such different roles for different people.
Yeah, it really depends on your individual goals and concerns.
Okay, so we've seen how these gold IRAs can work in real life. But let's go back to those myths and misconceptions we were talking about earlier. I think it's important to debunk some of those.
Yeah, for sure.
What's the biggest myth you hear about gold?
I think the biggest one is that gold is always a good investment, no matter what.
Right, like it's some kind of magical money tree.
Yeah, but we have to remember that gold prices do fluctuate, like any investment.
Okay, so you're saying even if you believe in gold's long-term potential, you shouldn't just go all in.
Exactly.
What about that idea that gold is only for like rich people?
That's another misconception. Gold IRAs are designed to be accessible to everyone, and the process is pretty straightforward, especially if you have a good provider helping you.
Okay, so you don't need to be like a Wall Street expert
Yep.
to invest in gold.
Not at all.
Okay, good to know. But what about the actual buying and selling of gold? Is that something you need to be an expert in?
Well, that's where choosing the right gold IRA provider is really important.
Yeah.
A good provider will handle all of that for you.
Oh, okay, so they'll take care of all the details.
Exactly.
That sounds pretty helpful. There's one more myth I want to talk about, that gold is like a relic of the past.
Yeah, I've heard that one too.
Like it's something your grandparents might have invested in.
But it's not really relevant anymore.
Yeah.
But I think that comes from a misunderstanding of what gold can do in a portfolio.
Okay.
Gold has been around for centuries, and it's still seen as a safe haven asset, especially during times of uncertainty.
So it's not about being stuck in the past. It's about recognizing the value of something that has stood the test of time.
Exactly.
All right, so we've busted some myths, but what about the downsides of investing in gold? Every investment has risks, right?
Of course.
So what are some of the risks with gold?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that gold doesn't generate income, like stocks or bonds.
Right.
So you're not going to be collecting dividends or interest payments,
So you're really just betting on the price of gold going up.
pretty much.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, as we talked about earlier, gold prices can be volatile,
Yeah.
especially in the short term. So you need to be comfortable with that.
Okay.
And then there are the costs associated with owning and storing physical gold.
Right. Those fees.
Exactly.
Okay.
And one final thing to consider is that gold doesn't always perform well in every economic environment.
Oh, interesting.
So it's important to have a diversified portfolio that can adapt to changing market conditions.
So it's not like a magic solution,
No.
but it could be a valuable part of a well-rounded retirement plan. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Diversification, inflation, real-life examples, myths, fees, storage, even the potential downsides. It's a lot to think about. Okay, so for our listener who is thinking about all this gold stuff, what would you say is the most important thing to keep in mind?
I think it's important to really think about it clearly and not just get caught up in all the hype. Gold can be good, but it's not a magic answer for everything.
Right, you don't want to just jump in because everyone else is.
Yeah, you really got to understand your own situation. Like, what are your goals and how much risk are you comfortable with?
Oh, maybe gold is right for some people and maybe it's not.
Exactly.
And that's something you figure out through research,
Right.
not just gut feeling.
Exactly.
It sounds like you're saying that you got to do your homework on gold.
Oh, for sure. Don't just take someone's word for it, whether it's some ad or even like advice from your family.
You gotta look into it yourself.
Yeah, read different sources.
Yeah.
Maybe talk to a financial advisor.
And of course, don't forget about diversification. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket.
No matter what that basket is,
Stocks, bonds, gold, whatever.
a good mix is important.
Well, this deep dive has really given me a lot to think about. It's interesting how something like gold can seem so simple, but then when you start looking into it as an investment, it gets really complicated.
Yeah, the financial world is like that. The more you learn, the more you realize there's more to learn.
It's definitely a journey.
It is.
So is gold the golden ticket to a stress-free retirement? Well, I guess it depends. But hopefully this deep dive has given you some things to consider.
Yeah, and remember, this is just the start of figuring things out. The world of investing is always changing. So keep learning, keep asking questions, and make sure you're making smart decisions for yourself.
That's great advice. All right, everyone, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into gold IRAs. And remember, keep exploring, keep learning, and make those retirement dreams a reality.